afternoon, everybody. It is Steve Lookner with Agenda Free TV. We are here to bring you live coverage because President Biden is going to be announcing a major change in border policy. Well, I don't know if it'll actually be implemented. So I think we should be clear here that he's making an announcement, but this change in border policy might very well, I would say odds are it's going to get stopped by the courts. So I think we need to be clear on what's going on here. But President Biden will attempt to make a major change in border policy. He's going to announce that in less than an hour. But please keep in mind that this is going to be challenged in the courts, and I believe there's a decent chance that the courts will not let it happen. When President Trump tried to make a similar change, the courts did not let it happen. So we'll have to see if this actually gets implemented. But he's going to announce a major change in policy. So that's going to make it, basically what he's doing is he is making it so that if too many people are coming across the border illegally, he will prevent people from requesting asylum at the southern border if they cross illegally. So normally the way it is if you at the southern border cross illegally, then as soon as you get taken into custody, you can say, I request asylum. And then usually you're let go into the country for a long period of time until your asylum hearing. But the idea is that with this new executive order, if you cross the border illegally and you say, I request asylum, they'll say, nope. We don't have that. That's not in effect right now, and they will send you back. The problem with the policy is it could violate current actual immigration law in the U.S. So, you might have a lawsuit that says, hey, this new policy Biden's putting into place violates the actual U.S. law, which gives people the right to request asylum. So we'll have to see if this actually gets put into place. But for now, he's going to announce it, and that's going to happen in 53 minutes. We're going to have live coverage of Biden's new executive order on the southern border. And we're going to be taking comments from you guys. I don't know if there's going to be some kind of Republican response to this today. If there is, and I can show it, I will show it to you. We'll have to see what happens with that. Also, I'm supposed to have some footage from the southern border for whatever that's worth in a little bit. So we'll show that too if I can. Once I have that, I'll show you that. Okay, so personally, it seems to me, this is not just my opinion, it seems to me that this is more of a political gesture because, again, you got to think there's a decent chance that this is going to get, it's certain to be challenged in the courts, and you got to think there's a decent chance that the courts are not going to let it happen. So I would assume in the White House they know that as well. All right, so thank you for joining us. I'm going to give you some of the details here, and we'll have Biden live for you. Let's see here. We got, hey, a quick thanks to the Norm for the gift memberships. Thanks, the Norm, and our Debbie James for the gift memberships, and our members on YouTube, Twitter, Pated and Ginger Spicy, and others. Let me give a shout out to our moderators who are here. We have Kinetic is here, Richard Williams, Beezy. Really appreciate all of our moderators. Thanks so much to our mods. And we have moderating. Hang on a second. Linda Belk and Larry moderate for us on X. Thank you. Thanks also to Dodger Blue 79 for your support. Thanks to our mods on Twitch, David Green, Idaho Star, I Got That Fire, Sarah, and Papa Bear. Thanks also I Got That Fire and The Sugar for subscribing. The Sugar O and I Got That Fire. And also thanks to our Facebook moderators. One moment here. Kay Lowry Body is moderating. Christina Neal is moderating. Margaret Riley's moderating. Thank you. Okay, let me do this. So let's talk about what this new policy will be. Okay? Okay, so in case you're not aware, currently, and I believe this is the way the law is written. It's the policy is this way because this is what the U.S. immigration law allows. Currently, the normal U.S. border policy at the southern border is if you step onto U.S. soil and you go to a border agent and you say, I request asylum, then they have to put you through a process. Asylum is when you're requesting that you be allowed in the country basically because you're at risk in your home country. So you do it for protection. So, for example, the UN says asylum is a form of protection which allows an individual to remain in the United States instead of being removed, deported to a country where he or she fears persecution or harm. Under U.S. law, people who flee their countries because they fear persecution can apply for asylum. So, what happens is once you step onto U.S. soil, even if you cross over illegally, you can request asylum. And once you request asylum, you normally have to be put through a procedure where you're questioned about this. Maybe you have a court hearing, and you have to go. They have to put you through a process. They can't just on the spot say yes or no. You got to get due process. And because there is such a backlog, because the resources to process people and to detain and to house people and to have court hearings for people, because these resources are so overwhelmed by the number of people who request asylum, there is this enormous backlog. So, if you request asylum, you're not going to get your court hearing that day. Often it's years ahead. Often you are told, okay, come back to this court hearing several years from now. And because there's nowhere to keep you, like detention center, you are just released into the United States for years, even if you show up to your asylum hearing years later. So that's the normal procedure. Again, the law mandates that you have a procedure that you get to undergo, that you have to be put through a process to determine whether you qualify for asylum, and you can ask for it once you set on foot on U.S. soil, even if you stepped over illegally and you did cross between the official border crossings. Now, what this announcement today is saying from the reporting is it's going to say once the levels of people crossing illegally get too high, I believe the reports say that once the number of people crossing illegally and getting detained is over 2,500 a day, which it is over right now. I believe on Sunday it was over 3,500 a day. So once it goes over 2,500 a day illegal crossings detected in the United States, that will cause this new policy to temporarily kick in, which no longer allows people to request asylum at the southern border, with certain exceptions. But basically, once too many people are trying to get in illegally, right, then temporarily no one's allowed to cross the southern border and ask for asylum unless you have an appointment. Okay, so it stops that. It puts a stop, and if you do cross the border and you say, I'm requesting asylum, well, they can just say, nope, we're not taking asylum requests at this point, and they can just send you back. So that's what basically the policy would say. And then the reporting says that that policy would stay in effect until the number of daily illegal crossings drops below 1,500. So once the number of illegal crossings gets low enough, then people would be allowed to ask for asylum again, even if they cross illegally. So it all would be triggered by the number of people crossing. And again, if it's reported that the limit at which it would kick in is 2,500 illegal crossings a day, and we're already there, we're already above there in the U.S. So I've seen reporting that says that this policy, unless the courts step in today and stop it today, I don't know what the chance of that happening is, but unless the courts step in immediately, my understanding is that this policy would apply immediately and apply at midnight. I think Politico was saying that this policy would apply at midnight, and that yes, Politico has a headline that says much of southern border to close at midnight. Now, it's not a complete shutdown of the border. Like if, say you're from the U.S. and you're visiting Mexico, you can get back into the U.S., right? So it's not like a complete shutdown of the border, but it's a shutdown of much of the border, in the sense that if you cross in between border crossings, they'll just send you back. There's no asking for asylum. Yes, as Politico puts it, the U.S. border with Mexico would be shut down between ports of entry at midnight tonight. So that's a super big change. As I said, it's going to get challenged in court. I have to imagine there's a very decent chance the courts will put a stop to this, and they'll say, no, you can't do this because U.S. current law allows people who enter illegally to request asylum, and you can't just pass a new law which goes against, you can't have an executive order which goes against current U.S. law. But we'll have to see what the courts say. I do wonder how soon the courts could act on this. Could the courts act before midnight tonight? Beats me. I'm not an immigration law expert. But that's the basic idea of this, is that once you have enough people illegally crossing daily, this will kick in and say, nope, nobody can request asylum if they cross illegally at the southern border. And that would kick in immediately, because that threshold of the number of people crossing per day has already been reached. So, and something like this was supposed to be part of there was this bipartisan agreement in the Senate months ago for a border bill. And one aspect of that was something like this, where once enough people cross, the southern border basically gets shut down to asylum seekers. But that bill fell apart. A bunch of Republicans said it wasn't strong enough, but also Trump encouraged Republicans to vote against it. It really seemed like Republicans and Trump did not want to give Biden allow this to pass, and wanted this to remain an issue for the election. That's what it kind of seemed like. But anyways, this kind of thing was part of that. This kind of shutting down, closing the southern border temporarily to asylum seekers when the number of people crossing gets too high, that was part of this compromise bill, which then Republicans decided to vote against, or said they would not support earlier in the year, after the compromise was reached in the Senate. Anyways, so it's a big change, certainly a big change from several years ago, from where President Biden was at. And as I've said before during our coverage, it's a big change for Democrats to have the Democratic president proposing, shutting down the southern border to asylum seekers. But in recent years, the numbers of people coming across the border illegally has gone up. Politically, the mood in the country seems to have really shifted on this, and even a lot of Democrats support much stronger policies, much stronger restrictions at the southern border. So it is, people would not have seen this, most people, several years ago, that President Biden would be proposing shutting down the southern border to asylum seekers. But that's what's basically happening. So anyways, I want to get some of your comments on this. He's going to make this announcement in 41 minutes. We're going to have it live for you. And as I mentioned, I don't know if we'll have some kind of Republican press conference or something in response to this. If there is, and I have footage for it, I will certainly show it to you. I would think the Republicans might want to do some announcement about this, but I don't know for sure that they are. I mean, at some point they probably will, but I don't know that they're going to do it right after Biden speaks. So I'll have to wait and see what happens with that. Hey, a quick thanks, by the way, to Kitty Cat. I really appreciate it, Kitty Cat. Thank you. And also Robin for your support. Thank you. Thanks to Bruce Kaiser for your support. Bruce says, how accurately and timely is the daily count determined? So, Bruce, I believe the number we're talking about in terms of border crossings is the number of people detained crossing illegally. So that number, I would assume, is just going to come from Border Patrol. They'll just say, hey, I'm guessing that's not a hard number for them to produce. They can just say, hey, in the last 24 hours, this is how many people we caught trying to enter the border, trying to come across the border illegally. It'll be that number. So it's based on the number of illegal attempted border crossings. I guess it's illegal encounters, but it's the number of people that were stopped illegally trying to cross the southern border. Once that gets above 2,500 a day for a certain number of days, then the southern border will basically shut down to asylum seekers, and that number's got to fall below 1,500 for a certain number of days before people can ask for asylum at the southern border again, even if they cross illegally. And again, on Sunday, the number was above 3,500 reportedly. So this would kick in immediately. Thanks, Walter Beasley, for your support. I really appreciate that, Walter Beasley. Thank you. Let's see here. I want to just make sure I'm not missing kind of other big details of this thing. Blah, 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 blah. Yes. So according to the New York Times, for once the border is temporarily shut down to asylum seekers, the southern border. But again, remember, you can still have an appointment, but basically shut down to people crossing illegally and then requesting asylum is what we're talking about. So once the southern border is shut down to asylum seekers between the points of entry, between the accepted points of entry, according to the New York Times, the figure would have to stay below a daily average of 1,500 for 7 days in a row, and the border would reopen to migrants 2 weeks after that. Okay, so it basically would be 3 weeks under this new executive order. The shortest amount of time the southern border would be closed to asylum seekers who are trying to cross illegally. The shortest time would be 3 weeks, because the figure would have to stay below a daily average of 1,500 for 7 days in a row, and the border would reopen to migrants 2 days after that. I'm actually going to post that because it's kind of interesting. So it's not like it'll shut down one day and then open the next day. I'm going to post this right now. So let me say this again. According to the New York Times, the new Biden border executive order, under the new Biden border executive order, shutdown of the southern border to asylum seekers who cross the border illegally would last, any shutdown of the southern border for a minimum of 3 weeks. All right, so to see if I said this right. According to the New York Times, under the new Biden border executive order, any shutdown of the southern border to asylum seekers who cross the border illegally, triggered by high numbers of illegal border crossings, would last for a minimum of 3 weeks. And I say that because the border would reopen to asylum seekers The border would reopen to asylum seekers only when the number of daily border crossings falls below a daily average of 1,500 for 7 days in a row. So you need 7 days there, and then the border would reopen to migrants 2 weeks after that. So, if this is not stopped by the court, if this executive order is not stopped by the courts, then as of tonight, it looks like the southern border will close to asylum seekers, unless you have an appointment, for at least 3 weeks. As I understand it, again, if the courts do not stop it, as of tonight, midnight, the southern border would close to illegal asylum seekers. Again, you would not be able to illegally come into the country and then request asylum for at least 3 weeks, if what the New York Times says is correct. Okay. That's interesting. Sea Turtle says, but they can still illegally cross. Well, that's just a physical statement. That's a statement of physical possibility. Yes, someone could illegally cross and go undetected. But that's not there's no policy change that's going to change. Well, there's no you can legislate as much as you want. But if someone can evade detection, yes. You can't legislate physical possibility. You can't pass a law. I mean, what would the law be? It is physically impossible for you to come into this country without being detected. I mean, I don't know how that doesn't really make sense. So yes, someone could still evade detection, and if they evade detection, cross over the border illegally. But that's not really something the law can put a stop to. I mean, you could have a law that devotes more resources to protecting the border. But you see what I'm saying. You can't legislate out the physical possibility of somebody entering over detection. No matter what laws you passed, it's still possible for someone to evade detection. If your problem is with people evading detection, then it would seem that what you would want is more resources devoted to protecting the border. Now, by the way, speaking of resources, another point that's worth keeping in mind is this. So something that, if an executive, as I understand it, an executive order will not fund border enforcement more, will not fund more asylum judges, more border patrol agents, and all that kind of stuff. So if for this policy to be put in effect, it would require more funding, then that will be a problem for the policy. So, if this policy is going to involve a bunch of people crossing the border being sent back who would not normally be sent back to their home countries, you're going to need resources to do that. And I don't know what that would cost and if those resources currently are available. Because if you don't have the resources, then it's not going to be able to happen, right? And who knows? Maybe if you need the resources to start putting people on buses and planes and getting them back home, do you have to pull off resources who are actually enforcing the border protection? And does that make it easier for people to cross in undetected? Don't know. But that is something to keep in mind, that this, as far as I'm aware, an executive order does not actually give more funds to the border protection, border judges, asylum judges, that kind of thing. So that, in theory, could make it harder to implement this policy in an effective way, even if you change the policy. Okay, I want to take some comments from you. Hey, thanks, Donna B, for your support. I appreciate it. Andy Austin says, do you think this has anything to do with the new president of Mexico? No. Look, this is something that was reported several months ago that President Biden might do this. I think it has everything to do with politics. I think that's the obvious conclusion. The border issue, there's again a lot of feeling in the United States, even among Democrats, that there's a big problem with people entering the country, with migrants coming into the country beyond the number officially allowed, and more people coming into the country than the officially allowed number. And that is because a big reason for that is that U.S. law allows people to cross the border illegally and ask for asylum, and there's not enough resources to process people quickly and detain them. So a lot of people are just allowed to stay in the country and given a court date for several years in advance. And then they're just in the country. And some of them might not show up for their court date. And that combined with a big increase in recent years of the number of people crossing illegally has resulted in greater numbers of people from outside the country illegally and not given permission, not granted a visa, say, or a green card, coming into the country. And for a lot of the country, there are too many migrants coming in the country, and that's a political issue. President Biden, I would think, even though he must be aware that this very well could be overturned by the courts, to me, it just seems obvious that this is going to be a political gesture when you have the election coming up in, 5 months? And this is such a big political issue. So I think it would be reasonable to conclude that this is a political gesture. How much of it how much does Biden and the Biden administration, how much do they really think this has a realistic chance of not being overturned by the courts? I don't know. But I don't think you can take the politics out of it. And I don't think that's a very bold view. I think that's kind of a consensus. Go read some articles about this and you will see this view put out there again and again and again. So that has nothing to do with the new president of Mexico. The new president of Mexico is a protege of the previous president and is not supposed to greatly have different policies in relation to how Mexico interacts with the U.S. on border policy. That's not really supposed to change with the new president in any kind of great way. So it really shouldn't have anything to do with the new Mexican president. Let's see here. Okay. Lisa Kurz, our viewer, says a little too late. Tony Stark says it's an executive order. What courts? Well, in the United States, you have different branches. There's this thing called checks and balances. And there's three branches of federal government: executive, judicial, and legislative. And they have checks on each other. And the judicial branch can say, if the executive branch, the president, tries to do something, which tries to do something by executive order, which goes against the laws of the land, then the courts can step in and say, hey, President X, you can't do that because that goes against a law that's already on the books. So that's what the courts are allowed to do in the United States. So a court could say, hey, Biden, this new executive order is not going to fly. Why? Because there's already a law that allows people to come in illegally and request asylum. So you can't just by executive order, by fiat, declare the law no longer applies in the U.S. because I'm president. It's not a monarchy. That's not the way it works in this country. So the courts could say that his law is illegal, that it can't be implemented because it goes against existing U.S. law. Will they do that? I don't know. I assume there's a decent chance of it. Aliyah says, why doesn't Congress update the laws? Great question. That's really what is needed for and this has been going on for years. many people feel that the immigration system is broken in the U.S., that the conditions were very different when the laws were passed than how it is now. Way more people trying to come across the border. But Congress has not been able to get together for years and pass a law updating immigration policy. You'd think, why can't they? Why can't they? Well, it's a lot of politics. It's a lot of politics. You'd think, hey, if Democrats and Republicans both think that, maybe we got too many people entering the country, and maybe we shouldn't allow everybody to just step onto the soil and request asylum if it's going to be several years that it takes to process them. Maybe we shouldn't allow that, or maybe we should give more money so that we can have more asylum judges and more detention centers, so we don't have this issue of people crossing the border illegally saying, I request asylum, and being let off into the country for several years. If both sides think that, you'd think they could come up with a solution. But the problem is it gets to be politics. By the way, it wasn't always, one issue is that it's only more recently that the Democrats' views on this have kind of approached more the Republican views in terms of a more restrictive border policy. But even now, look, there was a Senate compromise bill that was agreed upon. I think it was earlier this year, but ultimately the Republicans decided they didn't want it. Why? Well, a bunch of Republicans said it was because it wasn't strong enough, but you have to think there's plenty of reporting out there that Trump didn't want it, that he told Republicans he didn't want it. And you have to think there's a decent chance that Republicans figured, hey, let's not pass this bill now. Then Biden will get blamed for it, for the lack of, for what's going on at the border. And then we'll do better in the election. So the politics factors in here. But it would, you would think that both sides could get together and pass something. But politics gets involved. So that's my answer to you. Why haven't they updated the policy? Politics. Let's see here. Our viewer, Oksana Didu, says political grandstanding is present on both sides. She says currently it's the Republicans stalling. As I said, though, this was not always Biden's view that he wanted to shut down the southern border to new asylum seekers. That was certainly, this is something that Biden has come to more recently, and this was not really a mainstream Democratic view. Earlier this year, when I have done previous streams where I said, wow, can you believe this? Biden is saying he's going to shut down the southern border. This is a Democratic president saying that. So it's a big change. The politics in the country has shifted. Paula Carroll says politics get in the way of politics. Okay, let's go over again what's going on. Hey, thanks, Berenico, for your support. Oh, we got 22 minutes until Biden speaks. Hey, hang on a second. Why didn't I get this video here? I was supposed to maybe have some video from the border, just that I could show you, but I don't have it yet. Okay, so I'll show you what it looks like on the screen. Hold on, let me do this. Here, check this out. See, it says, oops. Sorry, I'm trying to do this. Let me do this way. I'm going to shrink this a little bit for now. President Biden delivers remarks. So we are covering President Biden announcing a major new change in border policy, which could end up very quickly getting stopped by the courts. He is going to announce a new executive order, according to various reports, which says that once too many people are trying to get in the country illegally and crossing the border illegally, which would already apply now, the southern border will shut down to people asking for asylum who don't have an official appointment. So you will no longer, while this policy is in place, if too many people are trying to cross the border, over 2,500 a day, which is we're already at, then immediately the border will shut down in the sense of if you cross illegally and you go up to a border patrol officer and say, I request asylum, the border patrol officer will say to you something like, nope, we're not taking requests at this time, we're sending you back. So it would temporarily prohibit people from crossing the border illegally, requesting asylum, and it would say that they're going to be sent back across the border. So, and that would last for at least 3 weeks until the numbers of people trying to cross drops below 1,500 a day on average. So that is a huge change in border policy to say you cannot cross the border illegally. It is not the case that however you step on American soil, once you step on American soil, you can request asylum and you need to get put through the asylum process, asylum request process, which can take years. So he's going to announce this. And I'm guessing what he will say is, I'm guessing what he'll say in his remarks is something like, I wish Congress could have done this, but Republicans didn't want to do it. That's what he's going to say. Because he said that kind of thing before. So I got to try doing it myself. And, you know, one issue, he's gonna also probably say, look, for a lasting change, we need Congress to do something. So I would be shocked if he didn't say we need, you know, a congressional new law passed on this, not an executive order for the long term. That's, I'm guessing, what he'll say. So we'll see what happens. But my big question is, how long would it take for the courts to stop this if they're going to stop it? And could they stop it before tonight, before midnight tonight, when this policy apparently would go into effect? Okay, let's see. I want to take some comments from you guys while we wait here. Let me just make sure I'm not missing any updates here. John Turpin says politicians are very worried that we the people will have our say in November. That's from our viewer, John Turpin. He thinks this is the Biden administration attempt to boost polling numbers and try to change public opinions on him and other Democrats. Look, I would guess that in the Biden administration, they think there's a very good chance this policy will never actually be implemented because the courts will shut it down. As I said, I think there's a decent chance that this is basically just a political gesture, because they think that the courts will say this can't go through. There's a bit of risk here for Biden, though. I mean, there's going to be some in the Democratic Party who are against this announcement. You know, people who don't like that Biden is saying that they will temporarily prevent people from requesting asylum on U.S. soil, no matter how they crossed into the U.S. And so, you know, there's pluses and minuses for Biden to doing this, and I'm sure all other kinds of pluses and minuses, but that's worth keeping in mind. Our viewer Ralph Stallworth says Republicans should be happy about this. Mudmore thinks this is a gesture towards inhumanity. I'm Puff Puff says 3+ years and now he's doing something. Our viewer Tim Apples says, who knew that exploiting your neighbors until they are impoverished would make them want to leave their home countries? Station Zebra News says, how insane, a president trying to deal with a problem both sides agree is a problem. What a goof. Iconcast says, I think the appeal should be for Biden to tell Congress, wait until the election, and then however the American people vote, we need to have action on this first thing of that new Congress. All right, so in 15 minutes, Biden is going to be speaking. We're going to have it live for you. He's going to be announcing his new border executive order, a major change in border policy. And the policy change is going to be, according to multiple reports, that once the number of people trying to cross the southern border illegally in the U.S. gets too high, over 2,500 a day, which it already is. Reportedly, it was over 3,500 a day on Sunday, 3,500 on Sunday. So once the number of people crossing illegally gets too high, which it already is, the southern border would be shut down to asylum seekers unless they already have an appointment, unless they have an official appointment. So basically, if you show up at the southern border and you don't already have an appointment and you ask for asylum, or if you cross illegally and you go up to a border guard and you ask for asylum, they'll say, nope, we're not even taking requests right now, and they will be able to immediately send you back to your home country. That is not the way it currently is. According to U.S. law, because of U.S. law, even if you cross into the country illegally, you are allowed to request asylum. And once you request asylum, even if you came across illegally, you are put through an entire process. That process can take years until you, say, get a court hearing. There's not enough detention facilities to house you. So many people who cross illegally and request asylum are just allowed to stay in the country and given a court date several years in the future. But under this policy, this executive order, which we'll see if the courts overturn, when the number of people crossing illegally gets too high, the southern border will temporarily shut down, in the sense of, if you cross into the United States and you request a border and you request asylum, they will say, no, we are not accepting asylum requests at this time, and be able to send you back without processing you. So that would be a big change. Hold on one second here. Oh, we will begin shortly. We will begin shortly. President Biden delivers remarks. But it's not for another 15 minutes, at least. The New York Times said that this would suspend long-time guarantees that give anyone who steps onto U.S. soil the right to seek a safe haven. Justin Williamson says, too late, damage is already done. Joseph Tugas thinks it's a nothing burger. I don't like when people say it's a nothing burger, like in a sense, because I don't think it's nothing that he's proposing it. I think it's a huge deal that a Democratic president is proposing to shut down the border, basically the southern border, and that this will take effect at midnight. Now, you might think, well, the courts are going to overturn it, but I don't think it's a nothing burger. Yeah, as HK says, the other one is people say nothing ever happens. I love that. Even when we cover thing after thing where something happens, people say nothing ever happens. Hoagie thinks it's a political trick. NorCal Jim thinks something needs to be done. Again, this would take effect at midnight from what I understand. Thanks to Joe B for your comments. Thanks also to Matthew Felty. Oh, Matthew mentioned that the White House already posted something about this. I should have looked at that. Hey, thanks, Matthew. Let's see what they've posted about this at the White House. Here it is. Guys, look at this. New post from the White House. Fact sheet. President Biden announces new actions to secure the border. They already posted it. New actions will bar migrants who cross our southern border unlawfully from receiving asylum. We'll have to look at this right now. Give me one moment here. That's new from the White House. They just posted this. Thanks, Matthew. Okay, Biden is taking action as congressional Republicans put partisan politics ahead of national security, twice voting against toughest reforms in decades. I told you he'd say something like this. I mean, that's pretty obvious. Okay, they just put out a big press release here talking about this. Let's see what they said. I'm going to kind of go quickly through this, not going to read the whole thing since his first day of office. President Biden has called on Congress to secure our border and address our broken immigration system. Blah, 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 blah. President Biden believes we must secure our border. That is why today he announced executive actions to bar migrants who cross our southern border unlawfully from receiving asylum. These actions will be in effect when high levels of encounters at the southern border exceed our ability to deliver timely consequences, as is the case today. They will make it easier for immigration officers to remove those without a lawful basis to remain and reduce the burden on our Border Patrol agents. But we must be clear, as it was obvious he would say, this cannot achieve the same results as congressional action and does not provide the critical personnel and funding needed to further secure our southern border. Congress still must act. Our actions today will bar migrants who cross the southern border unlawfully from receiving asylum, or even requesting asylum and being put through that process. President Biden has issued a proclamation order under Immigration and Nationality Act, Sections 212F and 215A, suspending entry of non-citizens who cross the southern border into the U.S. unlawfully. Fine. The actions will be in effect when the southern border is overwhelmed, which is, as I understand it, now. These actions are not permanent. They will be discontinued when the number of migrants who cross the border between ports of entry is low enough for America's system to safely and effectively manage border operations. Okay, and then he says, we have taken recent actions to secure our border and address our new broken immigration system. All right, anyways. I'll post a link to this press release here. But you see the basic idea. I just posted the link. Hey, thanks to our moderators as we wait for Biden to speak in 7 minutes, if it's on time. Really appreciate our moderators. RJ is moderating. Thanks, RJ. Kinetic is there. Thank you, Kinetic. Very much appreciated. I know Richard Williams was there earlier. Linda Belk and Larry moderate for us on X, over on Twitch. We have Idaho Star, I Got That Fired, McBritches, Sarah, and Papa Bear. Thanks, by the way, to Super Natty Metal for subscribing on Twitch, and Warlord Wolf, thank you. And our Facebook moderators, such as Kay Lowry Body, Christina Neal, Margaret Riley. Thanks to all of our moderators. Facebook has still not fixed the issue with the Facebook subscribers. It is ridiculous, but I am talking to them and trying to get them to fix it. So I apologize to our Facebook subscribers. Okay, let's see here. Let's go over to here. There we go. We will begin shortly. Oh, do I have a view of the border? Let's see. What's the border view? Oh, the border view is just a flag. That's not really exciting. Okay, so again, one of our viewers said, why is this happening now? Because there's an election in 5 months, I think. And Biden is concerned, I'm guessing because there's an election and Biden is concerned that voters who think there's too many people illegally coming into the country might favor Trump and Republicans if Democrats aren't seen as being strong on this issue. So my guess would be something like that. Okay. 5 minutes. And let me say again, I have not heard yet of a Republican-like press conference in response. If some Republicans give like some sort of press conference after responding to this, I don't know if they're going to, and I have it on video. I will certainly show it to you. But I don't see it scheduled yet. But that is something I'll be looking for. Our viewer Hi251 says, how can I know if Biden wins the election he won't change his mind again on this policy? Well, I mean, it's an interesting question, but I don't think he'd be doing this unless he thought there was a lot of support in the country for it, because it does risk going against some of his Democratic base. It's not where he was at several years ago. It's a really, really big change to have a Democratic president basically issue an executive order that shuts down the southern border to asylum seekers who are crossing illegally. That's a really big change. So you might think that the mood of the country is not going to change when the election happens. Although, who knows, you know? You might think, well, he might not push Congress as much when the election, if he's elected again. I can't tell you what he would do. Regardless of who wins the presidential election, I just wonder, it's been so many years since Congress has been able to agree on any... Congress, for years, there's been calls for Congress to fix the broken immigration system, and they just can't agree on anything. So is that going to change next year? Is that going to change next year no matter who wins? Will the party that's, say, not in power want to reach an agreement with the party in power on a new border bill? I have no idea. No matter who wins presidency, I have no idea. Stacy Bashford thinks it's for optics only. PZ Papa Zulu says Joe is seeing the polling. Half Price Buddha says seems like a W for everyone involved, honestly. Well, it would not be a W for people who want to request asylum and enter illegally, because they wouldn't be allowed to request asylum. All right, so 2 minutes. I don't know if this is started time. It's supposed to start in 2 minutes. We're bringing you live coverage here, and we'll take your comments after. Cindy thinks Congress will address this when it comes in a standalone bill. Now, there was going to be a standalone bill, I believe, earlier this year. But again, the Republicans decided that they did not want to support the Senate compromise agreement. All right, in about a minute, he's supposed to speak. Once we get to 0 on the clock, I'll have to change the headline. I'm going to take the clock away because the clock will start counting up at 0. We will begin shortly. I'm ready. Can we see the entire executive order? I am not aware that it is not posted. So the press release that the White House posted does not contain the executive order. So maybe it exists posted somewhere, or it will at the time of this announcement. But we'll look at the announcement first, and then I'll see if I can find the executive order for you. All right, in about 20 seconds, we're going to reach 2 p.m., and then I got to remove the clock because obviously, and I'm going to change the headline. All right, so it's going to be 2 p.m. in 10 seconds. 10 seconds until 2 p.m., and I'm removing the clock. Okay, so I'm going to change the headline to any moment Biden announces border executive order. Let's see if this works. Let's see if this works. Did I do it right? Ooh. No. Hang on. One moment. One moment. There we go. We got it. We did it. We did it. We got the headline fixed. Oops. No, I left a colon out. I left a colon out. So any moment now, we have, let me fix this, fix that, get rid of the clock there. Let me just get rid of the clock here. Goodbye, clock. Fix the headline. Okay, here we go, guys. We're waiting. We're ready. We're ready for it. We are ready for it. Hey, thanks so much, Bar the Elephant. He says, I agree it's a shift in recent memory, but weren't Dems calling open borders a Koch brothers conspiracy a decade ago? I'm confused. I don't remember that, so I don't know. I can't speak to that, Bar the Elephant. But it is a big change for a Democratic president to be now calling for a shutdown of the southern border to asylum seekers who are crossing illegally. And this would take place, this would go into effect at midnight. As of midnight, from what Politico says, that's when it would go into effect. You would not be able to, if you cross the border illegally in the U.S. and the southern border, and you go up to a Border Patrol agent and you say, I request asylum, they could just say, nope, we're not taking requests right now, we're sending you back. That's a big change. But the politics has shifted. What the politics was at every point in the past, I do not know, Barbar. So maybe I'm just not remembering the thing you referred to. I really appreciated that, Barbar the Elephant. Thank you. The volume is low? The volume is not, my volume is not low, because I can see my levels. My levels look fine. Okay, so we're waiting right now for Biden to speak. Let me just check something here. I may have a shot of the, yes, so what you're looking at right here is the White House like official feed. I also have my eye on, I have a separate shot of the podium, which I can't show you. I'm not allowed to show you, but I can see it. So he has not started yet. But as soon as he starts, this White House feed will, the White House feed that you're watching, the official White House feed, they don't show the podium like 5 minutes before. It'll basically go live to him right as he's walking out. But I do have my eyes on a different shot right now, and I can confirm for you that he has not started talking yet. So as soon as he starts talking, this feed will kick in, and we'll see him talking. But I can confirm he is not talking yet. Yeah, if I could show you the podium, I would, but I don't have permission to show you that. Okay, hang on a moment here. As I understand it, the numbers haven't been confirmed, but the policy would be once the number of people crossing illegally at the southern border hits 2,500 a day, and it is already above that number, then the southern border would shut down to asylum seekers who are crossing illegally. And that would happen at midnight tonight. And then the number of illegal crossings at the southern border would need to drop below 1,500 for a 7-day average for asylum, for it to be allowed again that people crossing illegally would be allowed to request asylum. All right, so like you guys, I'm just waiting for this to start. Any moment now, it's supposed to start. You'll see, well, there's a podium, and then on either side of Biden, there will be a screen that says securing our border. I can see that. And as I have mentioned, it is certain that this will be challenged in the courts. And I would think there's a very decent chance that that the courts will step in and say, no, this is not allowed because it goes against current U.S. law to say that people crossing illegally can't request asylum. But we'll have to see. So will we make it to tonight when we get to midnight? Will the policy take effect, or will the courts maybe have stepped in even by then? Will the courts step in and say, hey, we need a couple days to rule on this? I think the courts could do that. I think the courts could say, look, we have a challenge to this. It's very important. We need to rule on it. So while we're deliberating, we're not letting this go into effect. I don't know that that's going to happen, and I'm not a legal expert, but in other scenarios involving other things, courts can do that kind of thing. So I would not be surprised if, that's something you might see. It's like a temporary, what do they call it? I forget. It's not temporary restraining order, but some kind of a temporary block on the policy being implemented until the courts issue a ruling. I don't know that that'll happen, but who knows? Maybe it will. Injunction, as Dave Rocket says, injunction. Yes, maybe an injunction. The argument would be something like it'll be too disruptive a policy, people could suffer great harm because of the policy change, and that we don't want the policy change to go through because of this until we give it the okay and make sure because we have a challenge to it. So I would not be surprised if there's some injunction that says, nope, this can't go into effect until we issue a ruling. But I don't know. Who makes up the courts I refer to? Well, it would be federal courts. I would assume, I don't know who the application would be to. Who would you file a lawsuit with in federal court? I don't know which court you would file a lawsuit with over this. I would think like the ACLU, which is known for challenging this kind of thing. I read an article where they said that they would there was some kind of quote suggesting that they would file a lawsuit here. As to what federal court they would file it in, I don't know. I don't know there's going to be an appropriate court that you would file this lawsuit in. But it would be the federal court system. Okay, so it is currently 2:08. This was supposed to be at 2. I'm not surprised it's a few minutes late. Any moment now, President Biden is going to announce a major new change in border policy, which we don't know if the courts are going to allow. And this is going to, as of tonight, take effect from what we've heard. And no longer, as of tonight, will people illegally crossing the southern border be able to request asylum until the numbers greatly drop of people crossing illegally the southern border. So he will be speaking on this at any moment now. I'm just looking for any updates I might have while we wait for him to speak. Make sure I didn't miss anything. This is going to be a Democratic president announcing this. How about that? How about that? The politics on this issue has really changed over the last, couple of years? KG, our viewer, says it's called an election year. Norman Zolkos says, why would the court stop it when it is mostly conservatives? I don't believe that the federal court system judges are mostly conservatives, but regardless of whether they're conservative, they did not stop it when Trump did it. They did stop it when Trump did it. Trump tried to do some kind of similar policy and it was stopped. I mean, there was a policy during the pandemic which was not stopped during the pandemic because that was done for like a public health reason. Like the New York Times says in 2018, President Trump tried to cut off migration and that was blocked in federal court. So, I mean, the reason the court would stop it, no matter what the leaning of the judge is, whether they're seen as a conservative judge or a liberal judge, the reason they would stop it is because they would look at U.S. law, and if U.S. immigration law says people are allowed to request asylum once they're on U.S. soil, regardless of how they got here, then they'll say to Biden, look, it's the law that people are allowed to do this. You can't, as president, just say, I issue an executive order that something allowed under the law is no longer allowed. Because then, as president, you'd be making the law. The law doesn't mean much. It wouldn't mean much if the Congress gets to pass the laws, but then the president could just issue any executive order they want, regardless of what the law says. So, again, the idea would be that if this executive order conflicts with existing law, the courts would say, no, we are not allowing this executive order because it's against the law. And in our country, the Congress makes laws, not the president. I mean, the president has to sign the laws, but you can't. It's not the president just doesn't get to make whatever laws the president wants to. Yeah, the New York Times says Trump tried several times to close the U.S. border to asylum seekers, succeeding only in 2020 when he used a COVID-era emergency rule to seal the border to most migrants. But the other times he tried, it failed. Thank you, Norman, for writing in. Missile Hatch says the Supreme Court does not work that fast. Well, this won't immediately go to the Supreme Court. But again, as I understand it, the courts don't necessarily have to rule on it right away. Often courts do something like, they say something like, look, if this change is allowed to go through, it'll cause great harm to certain people. And we think there's a significant chance that when we rule on this, it'll turn out that we don't allow this change to go through. So in the meantime, we're stopping the change from going through until we rule on it. So that would be an injunction as I understand it. So the courts don't have to, issue a final ruling. Assuming that, Biden announces this and then let's say the ACLU sues and they say, no, this goes against the law. This should not be allowed. The court doesn't have to, as I understand it, issue a final ruling on it. They can say, well, while we're debating this in court, while we're figuring this out, whether this is kosher or not, whether this goes against other law, we're going to have an injunction. We're going to put a stop to it. I would not be surprised if that happens, but we'll have to see. Jeanette Killingsworth says he's not closing the border. Well, in essence, he would be closing the border to asylum seekers who cross illegally, which would be most of the border because they would be crossing in the area between the border crossings. The official border crossings are a small part of the southern border. So as one outlet put it, he would be closing, in essence, most of the southern border. Because if you tried to cross between the border crossings, you couldn't ask for asylum, which would be what you would previously do to try to stay in the country. All right, 2:15. We're waiting any moment now. President Biden will announce this new, more strict southern border policy, which he's declaring as an executive order. Jake Seattle says, assuming that you get caught crossing. We are waiting just to see. Yeah, Andy Austin asked about this happening because it's an election year. I think that's not certainly a reasonable guess, is thinking that he's doing this in an election year. As I mentioned, hang on a second here. Testing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. No, I want to do this. Hold on. Where is... let's see here. Thanks to Robert Glock as well. Appreciate your support, Robert Glock. So any moment now, Biden will speak. Yes, I was going to say, as I mentioned, as the report is that the policy will be once more than 2,500 people a day are illegally crossing the southern border and getting caught, which is now, because it was at over 3,500 on Sunday, apparently, reportedly, then the southern border will be closed to people seeking asylum who cross illegally. You will no longer be able to request asylum, even if you're on U.S. soil, if you crossed illegally. So, and then that would stay in effect for at least 3 weeks until the number of people crossing illegally at the southern border drops below 1,500 a day. Our viewer Cosmo's mom believes it is illegal to refuse asylum seekers, so this executive order is illegal. All right, we're bringing you live coverage. We're waiting for Biden to speak. You can give me a shout on X, at Lookner on X. All right, we're bringing you live coverage. At Lookner on X is where you can reach me. What would make it illegal if the existing law, immigration law, which I believe it does, says that people can ask for asylum, are allowed to ask for asylum if they're on U.S. soil, no matter how they got here. Oh, it's about to start. All right, so I'm seeing some movement in the room. Hang on, I'm seeing some movement in the room. There are people entering in the room. People are entering. It looks like it's about to start. I believe that current U.S. immigration law makes it, gives people the right to ask for asylum on U.S. soil, no matter how they got here. I'll have to look up the exact law and stuff. All right, so this looks like it's about to start because there's definitely people entering the room. Like, I think the press is probably already there. It's more looks like it's administration people entering the room. So again, once he's out there, I have the White House feed here. Once he is out there, the White House feed will just start playing. So I have my eye on a shot of the podium, but he's not out there yet. But it's about to start because there's like other people out there now waiting for him. I think I see the governor of New York is there. I see Homeland Secretary Mayorkas there. I know there's some members of Congress there. And then we'll take your comments after. Oh, something I didn't mention is I believe that unaccompanied children would be exempt from this. I've seen reports about that. So if you're an unaccompanied child and you cross the border illegally, you would still be able to ask for asylum. All right, he's about to start. He's about to start. Hang on. It's going to kick in right now.
Good afternoon. I've come here today to do what the Republicans in Congress refuse to do. Take the necessary steps to secure our border. 4 months ago, after weeks of intense negotiation between my staff and Democrats and Republicans, we came to a clear bipartisan deal. It was the strongest border security agreement in decades. But then, Republicans in Congress, not all, but walked away from it. Why? Because Donald Trump told them to. He told the Republicans, it has been published widely by many of you, that he didn't want to fix the issue. He wanted to use it to attack me. That's what he wanted to do. It was a cynical and an extremely cynical political move, and a complete disservice to the American people who are looking for us to not to weaponize the border, but to fix it. Today, I'm joined by a bipartisan group of governors, members of Congress, mayors, law enforcement officials, most of whom live and work along the southern border. They know the border is not a political issue to be weaponized. The responsibility we have to share, to do something about it. They don't have time for the games played in Washington, and neither do the American people. So today, I'm moving past Republican obstruction and using the executive authorities available to me as president to do what I can on my own to address the border. Frankly, I would have preferred to address this issue through bipartisan legislation, because that's the only way to actually get the kind of system we have now that's broken, fixed, to hire more Border Patrol agents, more asylum officers, more judges. But Republicans have left me no choice. Today, I'm announcing actions to bar migrants who cross our southern border unlawfully from receiving asylum. Migrants will be restricted from receiving asylum at our southern border unless they seek it after entering through an established lawful process. And those who seek to come to the United States legally, for example, by making an appointment and coming to a port of entry, asylum will still be available to them, still available. But if an individual chooses not to use our legal pathways, if they choose to come without permission and against the law, they'll be restricted from receiving asylum and staying in the United States. This action will help us to gain control of our border, restore order into the process. This ban will remain in place until the number of people trying to enter illegally is reduced to a level that our system can effectively manage. We'll carry out this order consistent with all our responsibilities under international law, every one of them. In addition to this action, we recently made important reforms in our asylum system, more efficient and more secure reforms. The goal is to deliver decisions on asylum as quickly as possible. The quicker decision means that a migrant is less likely to pay a criminal smuggler thousands of dollars to take him on a dangerous journey, knowing that if in fact they move in the wrong direction, they're returned around quickly. And 2 weeks ago, the Department of Justice started a new docket in the immigration courts to address cases where people who've recently crossed the border and they make a decision within 6 months rather than 6 years, because that's what happens now. Additionally, the Department of Homeland Security has proposed new rules to allow federal law enforcement to more quickly remove asylum seekers that have criminal convictions and remove them from the United States. My administration has also recently launched new efforts to go after criminal networks that profit from smuggling migrants to our border and incentivize people to give tips to law enforcement, provide information that brings smugglers to justice. We're also sending additional federal prosecutors to hotspots along the border and prosecute individuals who break our immigration laws. One other critical step that we will be taking, and that has made a huge difference. We continue to work closely with our Mexican neighbors instead of attacking Mexico. And it's worked. We've built a strong partnership of trust between the Mexican President Lopez Obrador, and I'm going to do the same with the Mexican-elect President who I spoke with yesterday. We've chosen to work together with Mexico as an equal partner, and the facts are clear. Due to the arrangements that I've reached with President Obrador, the number of migrants coming and to our shared border unlawfully in recent months has dropped dramatically. But while these steps are important, they're not enough. To truly secure the border, we have to change our laws, and Congress needs to provide the necessary funding to hire 1,500 more border security agents, 100 more immigration judges to help tackle the backlog of cases, more than 2 million of them, 4,300 more asylum officers to make decisions in less than 6 months instead of 6 years, which is what it takes now, and around 100 more high-tech detection machines to significantly increase the ability to screen and stop fentanyl being smuggled into the United States. These investments were one of the primary reasons that the Border Patrol Union endorsed the bipartisan deal in the first place. And these investments are essential, they remain essential. As far as I'm concerned, if you're not willing to spend the money to hire more Border Patrol agents, more asylum officers, more judges, more high-tech machinery, you're just not serious about protecting our border. It's as simple as that. I believe that immigration has always been a lifeblood of America. We're constantly renewed by an infusion of people and new talent. The Statue of Liberty is not some relic of American history. It stands for who we are as the United States. So I will never demonize immigrants. I'll never refer to immigrants as poisoning the blood of a country. And further, I'll never separate children from their families at the border. I will not ban people from this country because of their religious beliefs. I will not use the U.S. military to go into neighborhoods all across the country to pull millions of people out of their homes and away from their families, to put detention camps while awaiting deportation, as my predecessor says he will do if he occupies his office again. On my very first day as president, I introduced a comprehensive immigration reform plan to fix our broken system, secure our border, provide a pathway for citizenship for dreamers, and a lot more. And I'm still fighting to get that done. But we must face the simple truth. To protect America as a land that welcomes immigrants, we must first secure the border and secure it now. The simple truth is, there is a worldwide migrant crisis. And if the United States doesn't secure our border, there's no limit to the number of people who may try to come here, because there's no better place on the planet than the United States of America. For those who say the steps I've taken are too strict, I say to you that be patient. And goodwill of American people are wearing thin right now. Doing nothing is not an option. We have to act. We must act consistent with both our law and our values as Americans. I'll take these steps today, not to walk away from who we are as Americans, but to make sure we preserve who we are for future generations to come. Today, I've spoken about what we need to do to secure the border. In the weeks ahead, and I mean the weeks ahead, I'll speak to how we can make our immigration system more fair and more just. Let's fix the problem and stop fighting about it. I'm doing my part. We're doing our part. Congressional Republicans should do their part. Thank you very much. Welcome to Washington. We'll talk to you later. What was that?
I asked her, is Prime Minister Netanyahu playing politics with the war?
I don't think so. He's trying to work out a serious problem he has. Thank you.
All right, that was President Biden. Yeah, it is. So he was announcing, again, as we've been talking about, he announced his new executive order. Will the courts allow it to go into effect? I don't know. The courts might say that this executive order goes against U.S. immigration law. But the basic idea of what he said is that once too many people are trying to cross illegally every day on the southern border, which is already happening now, once too many people, once we hit a limit, at that point, the southern border will temporarily be shut down to people seeking asylum who cross illegally. So the way it is before this executive order, the way it usually is if you cross illegally, once you're on U.S. soil, you can request asylum. Then they have to put you through this whole process of going through your request and ruling on your request, which can take years. And often people are given a court date several years in advance and just told to stay in the country because there's nowhere to keep them and nowhere to house them. That policy, as of right now, as of this moment, is changing. As of right now, as of midnight tonight, according to this executive order, you will not be allowed to ask for asylum if you've crossed illegally over the southern border. And if you ask for it, they'll just say you're not allowed to ask, and they can send you right back. That's a big change. But we don't know. It is certain to be challenged in court. And will the court system allow this to happen, or will they rule that, say, it goes against current U.S. immigration law? In my amateur opinion, from what I know, there is a quite good chance that the court system will put a stop to this executive order. So don't be surprised if you hear that this is not going into effect sometime soon, because the courts have stepped in. But it's striking just to hear a Democratic president use this kind of language about something needs to be done at the border, and that there was at one point in the speech where he was like, we have to do something because so many people want to come here, and we, that from around the world. So we can't do, if we don't do anything, more and more people will just coming here. That's not something you're used to hearing from a Democratic president. But the issue has, the politics of this issue has changed recently. All right, I want to hear what did you think about Biden's remarks? What do you think about this new policy? Give me a shout. I'm going to take some comments now. And so let me repeat this. I am not aware that there is some sort of Republican response to this coming up. You know, if I knew that the Republicans were going to give a press conference in 10 minutes, I would, and I could get it on the air for you, I would certainly show it to you. So I'm not aware of that. If while we're on the air, I become aware that there's some sort of Republican response to this that I can show you, I will certainly show it to you. I'm not aware of that right now. By the way, thanks to A to Z, who thought that people clapping at the end for him was bizarre. Well, now the people there, I don't believe it was a general audience. So I would assume the people who were in the room were people who worked for there at the White House and invited guests. I don't believe this was open to the public. Anyways, thanks A to Z for your support. Thank you also Firestar for your support as well. Let's see here. And he didn't really take questions. He kind of answered one question about Netanyahu, but he did not take questions. Let's see here. Let me take some comments from you guys. Robert Law, our viewer, says, our Republicans are going to support open borders just to oppose Joe Biden. Diane Allworth, our viewer, says, I appreciate what he's doing, taking out politics. I found the speech muddled and a little unclear. Stasha Morgan says, I think Biden knows this will be challenged, and he's doing this to say, well, I tried. It's now up to Congress. Zelda Minis thinks this is just politics. This isn't substance. Lily's Thoughts thinks it's political rhetoric and vote pandering. Jamie Rowland says, simple and to the point. Jake Seattle X19 says, if you can't beat them, join them. Animal Groin says, can we just get to November already? Pogo Bukin thinks it's all political theater. Robert Law says it's going to be a rush on the border before midnight. Well, I don't know that people are close enough to the... It takes a while for where a lot of people are. A lot of people, when they go to the border, they take a journey of weeks or months. So I think there's a limit to how much people could flood the border. I think if... Now, there were stories out months ago that Biden was going to do something like this. So... You know, you would think if somebody was thinking of crossing the border illegally and requesting asylum, they'd want to do it before this executive order takes place. But I don't know, how much people thinking of crossing the border are up to date with U.S. politics. There were stories about this in U.S. news. There were stories that he was going to do this coming out several months ago. But, I think if he made this announcement and said it'll take place in 2 months, you might get certainly people trying to get in beforehand. But it was not clear when exactly this would happen. But it's supposed to take effect at midnight, according to Politico. Do I have a video of the border? Hey, I have a video of the border I can show you. Look, I'm going to show you a video of the U.S.-Mexico border. Guys, here is a video of the U.S.-Mexico border. Look, hold on. Get ready. I'm going to show you some video. That's not that exciting, but it's fun to be able to show you. Let's see here. Right here. Oops. Let me get it up on the screen here. Nice. There it is, live at the U.S.-Mexico border. That's the legal border crossing. Where on the border it is, I'm not sure. It's from Reuters. There we go. There's our live border shot, guys. But again, the people who are impacted by this are not the people who were crossing at the legal border crossings. It's the people who would illegally cross and then request asylum when they get caught. All right, let's see here. One of our viewers sent a post to me from Bill Malugin from Fox News, who says that basically that this is not a shutdown of the border. And look, no, Biden isn't saying he's shutting down the border. I have not been saying that. You got to be careful with your language. What I've been saying is it is shutting down the southern border to people who are requesting asylum and crossing illegally. That is what it's doing, with some exceptions. Like, for example, unaccompanied minors. So Bill Malugin, for example, says it does not stop or slow down the up to 1,500 migrants per day released into the U.S. via Customs Border CBP One app at ports of entry, and does not stop or slow up to 30,000 migrants per month flying directly into the U.S. and being released into the country via Biden's mass parole program for Cubans, Haitians, Nicaraguans, and Venezuelans. But to be clear, if you want to read his post, you can go to Bill Malugin on X. Bill Malugin, Melugin. But Biden did not say, and I do not hear him. I did not hear the White House describing this as a complete shutdown of the border. Hey, thanks so much to Marty Hagwood. Hey, thanks, Marty. It's really nice of you. Marty says, it appears to me that the Democrats are trying to stop the bleeding. Mel Raz thinks this is San Diego. This is somewhere on the U.S.-Mexico border. Russ Lane thinks it's pure politics. One of our viewers said this amounts to no change. No, it would be a significant change if it's allowed to go through. It's a very significant change if people who cross the border illegally can no longer request asylum. I mean, thousands of people a day are crossing illegally and being detained. So if those people are not allowed to request asylum and can be made to leave the country immediately, be thrown out of the country, rather than you have to process them and many of them allowed to stay in the country for perhaps years until their court date. That's a significant change. Now, something important, though, and we talked about this earlier, is something I mentioned earlier is this executive order does not provide additional funding for the border. And what I told you before was there's this question of for this new policy, will it require more money to have it be effective? Like, I don't know. Maybe there's a world in which to remove people, all these people trying to come in, you're going to need a lot more money. And so, you know, that it's one thing to announce a policy change. It's another to be able to implement it with the funding you have. Now, one thing the Wall Street Journal said is it's not clear that whether the order will have any measurable impact on the border without an accompanying infusion of money from Congress to implement it, or whether courts will let the order stand after expected legal challenges. So that's but the money question is a whole other question. I'm going to change the headline here. Biden announces Biden issues executive order. How can I make this short? Restricting. Oh no. I'm trying to think of, can I fit this all in one line? Something like new Biden executive order restricts asylum requests on border. We'll do it this way. We'll do it this way. I mean, obviously, you can't really summarize the whole thing in 10 words, but we'll try it this way. I know that's not completely adequate, that headline, but we're giving you some of the details here during the coverage. Oops, hang on, let me do it this way. We'll leave it like this. I'm going to leave it like this for you. For now, we're leaving the headline like that, and we'll make do with that. Right, and something else, we talked about is that the courts will surely be asked that there will be a lawsuit or lawsuits that claim this is illegal. And the Wall Street Journal sums this up by saying that we don't know yet if the executive order is legal. President Trump in 2018 issued a very similar order to this, which was quickly ruled illegal by multiple federal courts, which ruled that the ban violates immigration law, current U.S. immigration law, which states a person can ask for asylum no matter how they entered the country. So the idea is that if the law says that you're allowed to ask for asylum no matter how you enter the country, the president can't just suddenly say, well, if you enter illegally, you're not allowed to ask for asylum anymore, because it would be against the law to do that. The Wall Street Journal says that the Biden administration says that this order is different from the Trump order because it can toggle on and off, and it has more exemptions for humanitarian emergencies. Anyways, I'm not a legal expert. I'm not familiar with the whole technical legal discussion of why the Biden administration is going to argue that this order is legal. So we'll see what courts do. We'll see what the courts do. And one thing also the Wall Street Journal said is they said that part of the reason they said one reason that Biden wanted to do this, in addition to thinking that they said on one hand, the Biden administration wants to do this because they think that something needs to be done with a number of people crossing the border, but also illegally. But also, according to the Wall Street Journal, Biden wanted to do this because for political reasons. That the president can now say, look, I tried to do something about this. It's not my fault. I tried to do it. And the court struck me down or something. Nalul Freedom, our viewer, thinks that this executive order will be ruled illegal like Trump's was. There is no doubt. Our viewer Hetty Broccoli is rooting for the ACLU on this one. Thanks to Mandy for your support. Thank you, Mandy. Robert Law says faster processing of request is the only real immediate solution. Roland Stott says, didn't Biden just say like last week, I've done all I can do? He previously has said he did all he could do. Now, someone might say, well, I guess he was lying because he's trying to do this now. again, I think there's a decent chance that Biden and the Biden administration think, look, this is just going to get shut down by the courts. But, you know, again, it could be more of a political gesture. Oh, hold on a second. What is this? Do I have something coming up, I think? I might have something. Oh, I have something from the White House, maybe? Texas. What is this? Do I have access? Oh, I don't have access to this, I don't think. No, I can't show that. There's some Texas politicians speaking at the White House, but I don't think I can show that. Hang on a second here. Oh, I have it. Texas elected leaders speak at White House. Hold on, let me play this. This is from AFP. I didn't even know I had this. Hold on a moment. I need to get this on the screen. Texas elected leaders speak at White House. Let's see if I can get this on the screen for you. Hang on a moment. Hang on a moment. Trying to get this live for you. I hope this works. We'll see.
Brought by smugglers, posing threats to their lives. This is going to help us secure the border and at the same time provide an opportunity for people to...
Hold on. What I got to do, I got to take 2 seconds here. Give me 2 seconds. I want to try to fix that video sync problem. So I believe these are Democratic congressional representatives speaking in support of this executive order. I think that's what's going on here. So let me throw that up on the screen for you again, but I just need a second to get it on the screen. Give me a second. I'll do my best here. All right, hang on. One moment. One moment. One moment.
American bipartisan solutions. We can't have a former president blocking legislation that would alleviate our problems on our southern border. We need to be united. Democrats and Republicans need to step up to the plate. We need to pass more legislation in Congress that will have long-term solutions to our southern border problems. The American people want it, they demand it, and they're expecting that, and I think in November they'll be looking for solutions. Para la gente en español, les quiero dar las gracias por estar aquí. Estamos hoy buscando soluciones con el presidente para aliviar el problema en la frontera del sur. El problema de la frontera del sur no es demócrata ni republicano, es un problema americano que necesita soluciones bipartidistas. Hoy hubo miembros de los dos lados, de los dos partidos, gente apoyando al presidente. Creo que necesitamos que el presidente Trump también le diga a su gente que le sigue ciegamente que necesitamos soluciones y que le pongan presión a los congresistas y a los senadores en Washington para que hagan soluciones de nuestra frontera del sur. Necesitamos todos unidos para arreglar un problema que es un problema americano. Gracias.
Thank you. I represent Arizona. I'm here in support of the president's decision to issue this executive order. It's the right thing for the people of Arizona. It is the right thing for the people of the United States of America. It will help reestablish operational control of the southern border. The reason why we are here is because we couldn't reach bipartisan agreement across the aisle. The Senate bill would have been the appropriate way of handling this issue. That was a strongly negotiated bill representing the spectrum, across the political spectrum, left, middle, right. Unfortunately, because of politics, that bill was not able to get a hearing in the Senate or in the House of Representatives. We know the political reasons why that is the case. That is why the president took the step that he took today. We as Democrats stand ready, though. We know we still have an additional responsibility to continue to try to reach bipartisan compromise, continue to work on border security, continue to work on pathways to the United States that help lift up the American economy, continue to pass policies that improve trade with Mexico, Central and Latin America. We still have a lot of work to do, but this was an important step.
Hang on one moment. It'll come back in a second. We got some elected...
California, and I will tell you that inevitably there will be some who say that this is too little, too late. The reality is we could have done much more, much sooner had Republicans, and specifically Donald Trump and Speaker Mike Johnson taken action rather than play politics with a national security issue that should be a nonpartisan issue. I was at the border in East San Diego County just a couple weeks ago, and a couple things are very clear. Number one, our Border Patrol are overwhelmed. They really are. They need more personnel and they need more resources. And number two, the current asylum process as it stands is badly broken. And I applaud the president for taking this action today because we want safe and legal and orderly pathways for people to come to the United States and to live the American dream just as my mom's parents did when they came from Mexico when they were very young children. There was more order, it was much safer, and that's what we have to get back to. Unfortunately, there are too many politicians who embrace the chaos because it plays well in an election year. We've got to reject the chaos. We need order at the border. I applaud the president and my colleagues here today. Mark.
Thank you. Mark Vesey, 33rd Congressional District, Fort Worth and Dallas. And I just want to remind everybody about how we got here. First of all, you probably recall that Brett Hume, who is the chief news correspondent at Fox News, said this was the toughest bill that has ever come through Congress. No one is talking about that type of stuff. This was a bipartisan bill that was basically put together by a member of the Senate that last Congress got an A on his Club for Growth report card. And so all of the rhetoric out there about, oh, this bill didn't do anything, it was soft, it was nothing, that was all a lie. And y'all need to push back on that when you hear those lies coming from some of these outlets that are trying to play games for Trump. I applaud the president for taking strong, decisive action to do something that BS partisan politics killed earlier this year. And that's what the American public is sick of. They're sick of hearing stories about, hey, kill this bill because if we cure disorder at the border, it's going to help the sitting president. People are tired of that crap. People are sick of it, and I applaud the president for doing the right thing and making this executive order today because I truly believe that it's going to help. But Congress, we need to step up, and we need for Republicans to actually help us and not keep playing partisan politics.
Thank you, Mark. Let me just say one other quick thing. Consistent with what Mark said, remember that the Senate bipartisan bill was endorsed by the Wall Street Journal, the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, and the president of the Border Patrol Union, who's a big Trump supporter. Right. So when he talks about how effective it was and how strong it was, look at those outside independent sources. And for the Republicans that say too little, too late, let's make it very clear they've done nothing ever on this issue. They've just talked about it. Okay, now we'll make it. So just let him go first. Let him go first.
So why do you think the president waited 3 years to take action?
Because everybody talks about how the president is a creature of the Senate. He's served in the Senate for decades. And he wanted to see Congress do its job. He proposed a bill when he first came into office, and then he negotiated with this triumvirate in the Senate, Langford, Murphy, and Sinema, for 4 months with his team, because he wanted the Senate to do its job, because quite frankly, getting a deal done through the Senate and the House is the way to fix this for real. And we were so close to getting it done. They actually found a compromise that was endorsed by all these different parties that we've talked about, and then it was sabotaged by Donald Trump. So I think he waited to have the Congress try and take their action. Taking executive action is not the best way to address this problem. Nobody thinks it is. But it's something he has to do because the Congress has failed to act and because the people care about it.
Why the 3-year gap?
Well, you have to remember, the problem was not as bad when he first came into office because we had COVID and there were less people there. We did a lot of big stuff, if you remember, the infrastructure law, the CHIPS Act, the Inflation Reduction Act, and other things to address COVID. We were busy with quite a few things. And then he started negotiating this deal with the Senate, and then it was sabotaged by Trump.
Congressman, how are these new asylum restrictions different than what the Trump administration tried to do?
Well, this is setting a clear cutoff, a numerical cutoff, that says by formula that once you reach this number, we're not taking anybody in between the ports of entry. You can still come in through the ports of entry, which are, as a practical matter, limited to about 1,500 people a day, but you can't come in through the ports, in between the ports of entry.
My point is, the ACLU and others say they're going to sue.
I would expect them to sue. There's going to be a lot, and that's why Congress really has to act. to make this better than it is. But this is a very positive step, and they've vetted it. They've vetted it very well in the White House, and we were assured that they've thought it through as to how to pass legal muster.
Are you worried about resources? The congressional bill appropriated new money for officers and asylum officers.
That exactly what this gentleman just said. Because it's going to be a legal challenge, because only Congress can resource the money that you need, that's why you need Congress to act. To do this the right way, you need Congress to act. Executive order is not the best way to solve this problem. But right now, it's the only possible way that we have available to us because of the intransigence of the Republican Party of actually negotiating a deal. You know, it's the height of hypocrisy that we have heard Republicans say, we have all these problems at the border. It's so terrible. Terrorists are coming. Criminals are coming. Fentanyl is coming. It's so bad. It's so bad. It's so bad. Okay, we got a deal. Let's do the deal. No, we want to wait till Trump gets elected. That's the height of hypocrisy and the most cynical type of politics you could possibly expect.
What do you say to New Yorkers and Americans who are asking questions about what does connect them to, how does it connect them back to their families, who see this proclamation as a block? What are you saying to them who are questioning this?
Well, the reality is families can be united through an existing law that we have where there are 8 million people in the United States of America that currently qualify to be reunited with their families that can legally immigrate to the United States of America. But there's a cap legally at 700,000 people a year. There's another 2 million people that are legally eligible to come to the United States legally for work reasons. But it's capped at 130,000 people a year. There are millions of people trying to enter America based upon the lottery program, but it's capped at 50,000 people a year. The only thing that's not capped is the asylum system. And the asylum system is being abused by coyotes and cartels that are exploiting people and smuggling them in between the ports of entry and trying to get them to come here and pass the credible fear test to get them in the system for 6 or 7 years. That's why the system's broken. We want more families to be united. We want more people to be able to come to the country legally. But the only way we can get more people to come to the United States of America legally is to reform the laws and fix the laws. I know that the president is negotiating with the former president, Obrador, and is also talking to the new president about trying to, if you've seen a big reduction in the number of people that have been coming over the border recently, we're concerned that it's going to surge again, but Mexico has been a big help thus far, and I think the president is going to keep on negotiating with Mexico.
Thanks so much, everybody.
Sorry, I got to go.
All right, so that was Tom Swazi or Swozy, I can't remember. He is a New York congressional rep, and I don't know if they all were members of Congress. They might have all been members of Congress, but that was, I believe, some Democratic politicians, including the last speaker was Tom Swazi or Swozy from New York, and they were speaking at the White House. Swazi. No, Swozy? Let's see. Swazi. Okay. Are more people speaking? We might have more people speaking. This might be more speakers at the White House. Hang on a moment. More speakers coming at the White House, I think, here.
All right. Any questions for anybody? En español, sí. Sí, mira, este es un evento que tuvimos aquí de los alcaldes.
Muted. I'm muted. Sorry. I'm muted. I was still muted. I'm back. Sorry, I'm back. Hey, so what I was saying here is, so we just saw some Democratic, I believe, politicians speak on this at the White House. And I think these maybe are representatives from Texas or Texas politicians, but they were speaking in Spanish. So
we're very thankful as
here we
a
go.
group that we had the opportunity to come speak with the President, Secretary Mayorkas. As we all know that the executive action taken today is only the beginning, as we don't have the resources that we really need. We don't have the total resources. And one thing that living at the border, I'm Oscar Leeser, and I'm the mayor of El Paso, Texas, and I live it every day. I'm there day in and day out. I was there when the trains came in. I was there when 2,000, 2,500, 3,000 people came on a daily basis. And it was really important to us to make sure that people got treated humanely. It was important that people had a place to sleep, that people were off the streets. We worked really hard to be able to do that. We had the support of Secretary Mayorkas, FEMA, and the President to be able to do that. I'm very proud to say that today we don't have people sleeping on the street. We don't have people not being able to go to their destination. We've been working really hard. But this is only the beginning. We still need to have enough funding from Congress. We need to have a bipartisan agreement. And without a bipartisan agreement, we'll continue to struggle as a community. You cannot believe that we as a community will continue to be able to sustain for any long haul, for a long time. And we've been doing this now for years. I've been in office now for 4 years, and we've been doing this for 4 years. It's time that something happened. And I know that the President's tried. The President's continued to try to pass something to help us as a city, as a country. Has not happened. One of the things I'm, again, very thankful to the administration. They've given us the funding. It's not come to the back of the local taxpayers. You would bankrupt a city like El Paso. We couldn't do it. So it's very important that we continue to work together and find ways and avenues to be able to help the asylum seekers and move forward. This really puts people in order. One of the things that we were talking, what is this really doing? It's keeping people from dying in the desert, keeping people from jumping over the walls and falling. It's keeping people from being exploited as they come here. It really, the CBP-1 program that allows them to continue to apply to come into the U.S. and go through the lawful way is really important. We see it every day. We get the calls where we have to go out and we find people that unfortunately lost their lives in the desert, lost their lives going over the wall. And now it's time to really make sure that people go through the lawful way and continue to fill the CBP program. Once they do that, once it's accepted, they can go to work immediately. And that's one of the things we've asked. We've asked from the beginning that we want people to be able to work. We want people to be able to provide for their family. And if you're waiting for 5 years to be able to have a hearing, to be able to do that, that's not the way we want to do it. We want to do it in a way that people are humanly respected. And that's one of the things that this will do for us. And I'm very thankful for the President. And again, this is only the beginning. And until we get a bipartisan agreement, we'll have a broken immigration process. The process is broken, and this doesn't fix it, but it gives us an avenue to be able to take care of people. Any questions?
We'll have some other mayors.
I'm sorry. Go ahead. We'll go next.
Go ahead, Ramiro.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I just want to say my name is Ramiro Garza. I'm the mayor of Edinburgh, Texas. I just wanted to say that as mayors, a lot of us that are mayors, we actually have an alliance of South Texas mayors. The president went down to Brownsville, Texas, and the mayor of Brownsville's here. You can make some comments. And he asked us what needed to be done. And of course, we supported the bipartisan legislation that was trying to make its way, and it did not pass. And so part of why we were invited here is because he wanted to take action. And so we applaud him for taking action today, because that's what this is. As mayors of communities, we don't have the luxuries to wait or to do standoffs. We have to take action, right? And so we appreciate and applaud the president taking action today. As was mentioned by my fellow mayor of El Paso, this does not obviously fix our entire system, but this is a step in the right direction to try to help us cope with this issue. And I think we still have a lot of work to do, but it's a very good start.
Good afternoon, Mayor Ron Nirenberg from the city of San Antonio. Again, grateful for the president for taking this step. This is not a Republican issue. This is not a Democrat issue. This is an American issue. And as our chair of the South Texas Alliance of Cities, Mayor Garza, just said, we are on the front lines dealing with these issues every single day. A crisis that has been just exacerbating cities because of the inaction of Congress. So grateful for the president taking a step in the right direction to address the asylum process. A safe and orderly border is essential to a compassionate response in our immigration system. So again, thank you for President Biden stepping in the void where Congress could not. And I'd like to introduce our sheriff in Bexar County, Javier Salazar.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Sheriff Javier Salazar with the Bexar County Sheriff's Office in San Antonio, Texas. I'm privileged to be one of the few law enforcement officials invited here, and while I don't pretend to speak for every one of the 254 sheriffs in the state of Texas, I can speak for my own county. I'm about 200 miles inland, and I do absolutely consider myself a border sheriff. This is all of our problem in the state of Texas, but I see this as a viable solution. I wholeheartedly support President Biden in this effort. I wholeheartedly supported the bipartisan legislation that he tried to pass twice, and it was shot down. It was tanked solely for the purpose of political pandering to one person that made sure that it didn't succeed because they were terrified to give the man a win. So this, as I see it, is a win for all of us. We're seeing so many changes as a result of this. We're all getting familiar with the talking points of it, and I'm just thoroughly impressed with what I've seen thus far. Is it perfect? No, it's not a perfect solution, but I think it's a really good start that I think we should all absolutely give a shot to and continue to try to build on it as we continue to move toward a more perfect process. Soy el alguacil del Condado Béjar de San Antonio, en San Antonio, Texas, Javier Salazar. Yo apoyo al presidente en este esfuerzo, esta orden ejecutiva, que ya sabemos que va a tener unos problemas, las demandas van a venir despuesito de esto, pero para mí, yo lo apoyo.
Quick thank you to Jennifer Whittington for your support, and Jake and Matthew Felty and Mandy. I really appreciate it. Jennifer says, so sick of all the politicians. Jake says, it isn't even legal possible to completely shut down the border. We have certain international law obligations pertaining to accepting refugees, etc. Matthew Felty says, Speaker Johnson asked for this action in February. All right, hold on. Somebody else is speaking here.
With the migrants coming across. I want to commend the President for taking the initiative of signing this executive order. It's an order that's very important to help us control and secure the border without forgetting the humanitarian aspect of it. Primeramente le quiero dar las gracias al presidente Biden.
So, on Matthew's comment about Speaker Johnson and Republicans asking Biden to do this, so I believe the Biden administration's view on this was something to the effect of, it doesn't matter if we do this because the courts won't allow it. So, again, I do believe there's a decent chance that the Biden administration, they feel like ultimately this executive order will not be allowed because the courts will say it goes against current U.S. immigration law, which does allow people crossing illegally to request asylum. So, again, that would be a reason. You might say, why is Biden doing this now and not before? Well, he might still think now like before, he might have thought the entire time, well, the courts aren't going to allow it, but maybe he just thinks politically he needs to do it now. So anyways, let me just go. Is she speaking? Let's see. Hold on a second.
Immigration plan for the American people, give an opportunity to Congress to act, and when there was no inaction, he did what he did today and what was necessary. It's necessary to have an order to be able to treat people humanely and to be compassionate about the folks that are trying to come into our community, but also to do it in an orderly fashion. By no means does this executive order close the border, and so I think it's important that that is spread widely, that it is not closing the border, but it is giving a process for immigrants to use the CB1 app to be able to apply for entry into the United States. At no time will that not be available to folks, so it's important to remind people that this is not closing the border. This is giving an opportunity, as the mayor from El Paso said, we don't want folks traveling to the United States and falling to their deaths, whether it be climbing the wall or swimming through the river. We want to avoid that and make sure that people have a legal pathway to the United States, and that's what this does. And so I'm honored to be here. It is a privilege. I think that this administration has done what no other administration has done, what is giving a voice to the people of South Texas. Everybody from South Texas is here to represent their cities and their communities because we want what's best for our community, and that is to spread the message that in South Texas it is safe, we are thriving, we are a growing community, and immigration is secondary to what is happening in South Texas. And so we are here to share that message. Thank you very much.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is John Cowan. I'm the mayor of Brownsville, Texas, and it's an honor to be here with my colleagues at the South Texas Alliance of Cities. As Mayor Garza said, we invited President Biden to come down to the border in February. He came down to Brownsville, and we showed firsthand what was needed, and we're grateful that the president has taken action here. Just in the city of Brownsville, we've had over 240,000 migrants come through our port of entry, which puts a tremendous strain on our federal and local law enforcement agencies. So this executive action will help make us more efficient, make our communities safer, and help promote legal pathways into our country. So again, thank you to President Biden and his staff for getting this done.
All right, thank you.
All right, so those were some local politicians from Texas. And it sounded to me like they really just wanted something to get done. They were really saying they hope that, a lot of them were saying that they hope that Congress passes a law which changes things. It sounds like they just want something to get done to stem the flow of people coming across the border. All right, I think that's done there. Let's go back to we'll go back to the other shot here of, that's the US-Mexico border there. Have a live shot. Hang on one moment here. Oops, I think we lost the live shot. We might have lost that live shot. Might be done. Might be done for now. Is it? I think it might be. Anyways, so again, in case you missed it, President Biden issued a new executive order today, which is a big change in southern border policy. It says that once too many people are crossing the border illegally every day, I believe that number is 2,500 a day, which is, the U.S. is above that number now of illegal border crossings daily. Once the number of people crossing illegally gets too high at the southern border, the U.S. will temporarily no longer allow people who cross illegally into the country to request asylum. Normally, they would be allowed to request asylum, and then once they request asylum is when you request protection. You request to be allowed to stay in the U.S. because you are getting persecuted. There's a real risk to you in your home country. Normally, you'd be allowed to request asylum even if you crossed into the country illegally, and then you have to go through this whole process, and many people are given a court date years ahead because there are not enough places to detain them. There is not enough asylum officers and judges to get through all the backlog of cases. So a lot of people are given cases years ahead and told, look, just stay in the country and, come to your asylum hearing in 3 years or whatever, or more. But it's going to be, according to this executive order, when too many people start crossing the border illegally, which would be now, temporarily, people crossing the southern border illegally will not be allowed to request asylum, and the U.S. can send them immediately back across the border to Mexico or I guess their home country or whatever, but they will be able to evict them from the U.S. And big question, it's not clear whether this will be allowed by the courts. The courts very well might rule that this goes against current U.S. immigration law, and this could ultimately end up being just a kind of a political gesture. So Biden can say, I tried my best. If Congress changed the law, that's a different thing. If Congress changes the law, if Congress made a law saying this, well, then it would no longer go against the law because it would be the law. But President Biden giving this executive order, which is supposed to take place. It's supposed to take effect at midnight tonight. So if the courts don't step in by midnight, the southern border will be closed to asylum seekers who are trying to cross illegally. But we'll see what happens with the courts. President Biden said, do we want to hear one more time what President Biden had to say? It wasn't that long. I can play it again for people who didn't see President Biden speak. If you want to hear it again, we can play it again. Do you guys want to? Did I play Trump's response? I'm not aware he gave a response. I didn't have it here. Let me see if I can find it. I told you I would play, if I had access to some sort of like Democratic Republican press conference or something, I would play it. But Trump has not posted on his Truth Social about this. I'm not aware that Trump did a video response to this. I'm not aware that there was a Republican official press conference or something. As I told you, I would have played it for you. If Trump got up now and spoke and I had access to it, I would certainly play it for you. But I don't have that. Yeah, so. Okay, a bunch of people want to see Biden play again. He didn't post on his Truth Social. Let me check one thing here. I mean, his campaign might have given a response. But hang on a second here. Give me one moment. Yeah, we'll play what Biden said one more time because a bunch of you said you wanted to see it. Hang on one sec here. Oh, thanks to Just Me. Just Me says, what does the Constitution say on the issue? I don't think the Constitution is specific on this. I would have to check. My understanding is that immigration law, current immigration law, gives the right to people. That would be a law. That wouldn't be the Constitution. That would be a law passed by Congress at some point. Current immigration law gives the right to people crossing illegally, to anybody on U.S. soil, the right to ask for asylum. Yeah, and I'm not sure of the exact law, but where is it here? Yes, the Wall Street Journal says the court system, when President Trump tried to issue a very similar order in 2018, the U.S. courts ruled the ban violates immigration law, which states a person can ask for asylum no matter how they entered the country. So that wouldn't be the Constitution, which is the Supreme Court law of the land, because the Constitution is just the original founding law of the land, which like sets up the country, and it's not like that comprehensive. So U.S. law, there's way more U.S. law than the Constitution. It dwarfs the Constitution. But every time like Congress makes a law or the state makes a law, it can't contradict with the Constitution. It can't violate the Constitution. Okay, so I don't have the exact law, U.S. law to cite for you. Sorry about that. On what makes it legal or not. On that gives everyone on U.S. soil the right to ask for asylum. I'll try to look it up. All right, people wanted to see Biden speak again. Hang on a moment. Let's watch this. Okay. I'm going to show you right now. This was Biden a short time ago, and I'm going to play you what he had to say about his new executive order for people who didn't see it earlier today. Here we go. You ready? Hang on. Oops, hang on. Just may have to hit a refresh here. Here we go. All right, let's take a look. We will take a look when I turn the volume on. Hang on, I'm still not hearing it well. Why am I not hearing it? Oh, I know why we're not hearing it. All right, attempt number 3. This is going to definitely work now. Here we go. Here we go.
Good afternoon. I've come here today to do what the Republicans in Congress refuse to do. Take the necessary steps to secure our border. 4 months ago, after weeks of intense negotiation between my staff and Democrats and Republicans, we came to a clear bipartisan deal. It was the strongest border security agreement in decades. But then, Republicans in Congress, not all, but walked away from it. Why? Because Donald Trump told them to. He told the Republicans, it has been published widely by many of you, that he didn't want to fix the issue, he wanted to use it to attack me. That's what he wanted to do. It was a cynical and an extremely cynical political move, and a complete disservice to the American people who are looking for us to not to weaponize the border, but to fix it. Today, I'm joined by a bipartisan group of governors, members of Congress, mayors, law enforcement officials, most of whom live and work along the southern border. They know the border is not a political issue to be weaponized. The responsibility we have to share, to do something about it. They don't have time for the games played in Washington, and neither do the American people. So today, I'm moving past Republican obstruction and using the executive authorities available to me as president to do what I can on my own to address the border. Frankly, I would have preferred to address this issue through a bipartisan legislation, because that's the only way to actually get the kind of system we have now that's broken, fixed, to hire more Border Patrol agents, more asylum officers, more judges. But Republicans have left me no choice. Today I'm announcing actions to bar migrants who cross our southern border unlawfully from receiving asylum. Migrants will be restricted from receiving asylum at our southern border unless they seek it after entering through an established lawful process. And those who seek to come to the United States legally, for example, by making an appointment and coming to a port of entry, asylum will still be available to them, still available. But if an individual chooses not to use our legal pathways, if they choose to come without permission and against the law, they'll be restricted from receiving asylum and staying in the United States. This action will help us gain control of our border, restore order into the process. This ban will remain in place until the number of people trying to enter illegally is reduced to a level that our system can effectively manage. We'll carry out this order consistent with all our responsibilities under international law, every one of them. In addition to this action, we recently made important reforms in our asylum system, more efficient and more secure reforms. The goal is to deliver decisions on asylum as quickly as possible. The quicker decision means that a migrant is less likely to pay a criminal smuggler thousands of dollars to take him on a dangerous journey, knowing that if in fact they move in the wrong direction, they returned around quickly. And 2 weeks ago, the Department of Justice started a new docket in the immigration courts to address cases where people who've recently crossed the border and they make a decision within 6 months rather than 6 years, because that's what happens now. Additionally, the Department of Homeland Security has proposed new rules to allow federal law enforcement to more quickly remove asylum seekers that have criminal convictions and remove them from the United States. My administration has also recently launched new efforts to go after criminal networks that profit from smuggling migrants to our border and incentivize people to give tips to law enforcement, provide information that brings smugglers to justice. We're also sending additional federal prosecutors to hotspots along the border and prosecute individuals who break our immigration laws. One other critical step that we will be taking, and that has made a huge difference. We continue to work closely with our Mexican neighbors instead of attacking Mexico. And it's worked. We've built a strong partnership of trust between the Mexican President Lopez Obrador, and I'm going to do the same with the Mexican-elect president who I spoke with yesterday. We've chosen to work together with Mexico as an equal partner, and the facts are clear. Due to the arrangements that I've reached with President Obrador, the number of migrants coming and to our shared border unlawfully in recent months has dropped dramatically. But while these steps are important, they're not enough. To truly secure the border, we have to change our laws, and Congress needs to provide the necessary funding to hire 1,500 more border security agents, 100 more immigration judges to help tackle the backlog of cases, more than 2 million of them, 4,300 more asylum officers to make decisions in less than 6 months instead of 6 years, which is what it takes now, and around 100 more high-tech detection machines to significantly increase the ability to screen and stop fentanyl being smuggled into the United States. These investments were one of the primary reasons that the Border Patrol Union endorsed the bipartisan deal in the first place. And these investments are essential, they remain essential. As far as I'm concerned, if you're not willing to spend the money to hire more Border Patrol agents, more asylum officers, more judges, more high-tech machinery, you're just not serious about protecting our border. It's as simple as that. I believe that immigration has always been a lifeblood of America. We're constantly renewed by an infusion of people and new talent. The Statue of Liberty is not some relic of American history. It stands for who we are as the United States. So I will never demonize immigrants. I'll never refer to immigrants as poisoning the blood of a country. And further, I'll never separate children from their families at the border. I will not ban people from this country because of their religious beliefs. I will not use the U.S. military to go into neighborhoods all across the country to pull millions of people out of their homes and away from their families to put detention camps while awaiting deportation, as my predecessor says he will do if he occupies his office again. On my very first day as president, I introduced a comprehensive immigration reform plan to fix our broken system, secure our border, provide a pathway for citizenship for dreamers, and a lot more. And I'm still fighting to get that done. But we must face the simple truth. To protect America as a land that welcomes immigrants, we must first secure the border and secure it now. The simple truth is there is a worldwide migrant crisis. And if the United States doesn't secure our border, there's no limit to the number of people who may try to come here, because there's no better place on the planet than the United States of America. For those who say the steps I've taken are too strict, I say to you that be patient. And goodwill of American people are wearing thin right now. Doing nothing is not an option. We have to act. We must act consistent with both our law and our values as Americans. I'll take these steps today, not to walk away from who we are as Americans, but to make sure we preserve who we are for future generations to come. Today, I've spoken about what we need to do to secure the border. In the weeks ahead, and I mean the weeks ahead, I'll speak to how we can make our immigration system more fair and more just. Let's fix the problem and stop fighting about it. I'm doing my part. We're doing our part. Congressional Republicans should do their part. Thank you very much. Welcome to Washington. I'm talking later. What was that?
I asked her, is Prime Minister Netanyahu playing politics with the war?
I don't think so. He's trying to work out a serious problem he has. Thank you.
All right. So that was President Biden for those who didn't see it before. By the way, I did want to mention the ACLU has already released a statement where they say that they're going to sue over this, the American Civil Liberties Union. The ACLU statement that they released today says the Biden administration just announced an executive order that will severely restrict people's legal right to seek asylum, putting tens of thousands of lives at risk. This action takes the same approach as the Trump administration's asylum ban. We will be challenging this order in court, says the ACLU. So the ACLU says they are going to be challenging this in court. We'll see if it's supposed to take effect at midnight tonight. This will be a temporary ban on people being able to request asylum if they cross into the country illegally on the southern border. But we'll see if that actually takes effect tonight, or if the courts even step in before then. All right, I'll take a few more comments here. But we'll have to see. Again, I would certainly be on the watch for some sort of court order saying, first of all, you have to hold off on this until we, the court, rule on this. And second of all, an eventual ruling which says, no, this is not legal. It goes against current U.S. law. I don't know that that's going to be the case, and I'm not familiar with all the technical legal details, but I would not be surprised if that happens. Oh, by the way, I think I got an answer. Possibly the U.S. Immigration and Nationality Act. Somebody said ask GPT. GPT says the law that allows you to request asylum if you enter the country illegally, I'm just summarizing here, even if you enter the country illegally, you're still allowed to request asylum according to the Immigration and Nationality Act. Let's see here. Maybe I can show you the law. (208A1). Yes, so this is from, Cornell Law School posted this. Real quick, hold on. See, it says Legal Information Institute, Cornell Law School. And if you look here, it says, this is the Immigration and Nationality Act, I believe. Is that what this is? Hold on. Or is it's part of the U.S. law, Immigration and Nationality Act. U.S. Code 1158, asylum. Any alien who is physically present in the United States or who arrives in the United States, whether or not at a designated port of arrival, and including an alien who is brought to the United States after being interdicted in international or United States waters, irrespective of such alien status, may apply for asylum in accordance with this section. So I'm not going to get into all the details, but you can see right there that is part of existing U.S. law, which says if you're in the U.S., if you're not a citizen, if you're here in the if you're physically in the United States, whether or not at a designated port of arrival, whether or not you're supposed to be here, you may apply for asylum. Now, the Biden administration is going to argue somehow that this is that their executive order doesn't violate this. I'm not familiar with all the technical. There's a lot more, what does the whole law say and what are all the complex legal issues? I don't know. But that's the basic idea. That's the basic idea, okay? So. And then you have to meet certain criteria and demonstrate a well-founded fear of persecution or something like that. Again, I'm not familiar with the whole thing, but that's the basic idea, is that it's in U.S. law that you are allowed to request asylum even if you're here illegally. All right, let's see. Okay, guys, our viewer Drill says Mexican border has been a problem for a while. So we'll have to see if this is allowed to go through. Well, what is this here? John Turpin, our viewer, thinks this executive order is like putting a Band-Aid on a bullet wound. Yeah, Dancing in the Sand says you have to read the letter of the law, not so cut and dry as the first paragraph states. Yes, as I said, I'm not reading you the full law. This is not a legal analysis channel, and I don't know all the details of the law. Just somebody asked, where does it say this in the law? I'm giving you, that's my general understanding is that's where it says it. But there's more specifics than that. All right, guys, I think it's getting to be our time. I think it's getting to be our time here. Yeah, and one of our viewers mentioned to me, Jay Hitchcock, that Speaker Mike Johnson posted on his X account today saying that 126 days ago, Biden stated, "I've done all I can do to fix the border catastrophe." Today, he'll announce an executive action using the same authority he denied having. If he was actually concerned about our wide open border, he would have acted a long time ago. I would argue that if the Biden administration response to this, if they were honest about it, might be like, well, he doesn't actually think he does have the authority. He's just, again, just because he's announcing this executive order doesn't mean he really thinks he's allowed to do it, and doesn't think he doesn't. I mean, I would say it's probably the case that the Biden administration thinks there's a very, very, very good chance that the courts will overturn this ruling, that will overturn the executive order. Also, as Biden said, the executive order doesn't provide funding to put the policy into place. And so, they would take issue with Speaker Johnson's claim that because Biden announced the executive order, that means that Biden thinks he has the power to do this. And that's all, and by the executive order, he can put into place the policy. What this comment ignores by Mike Johnson is A, the possibility that based on past evidence of what the courts have done, the very, very significant possibility that the courts will overturn this, and also the fact that the executive order does not provide additional funding to implement policy. Just to be clear. No, and then somebody says agenda free in quotes. No, having an opinion is not having an agenda. Let's go over it again. Having agenda is being biased. To look at Mike Johnson's comment and to say that it ignores these points, that is not being biased. That's just obvious truth. That's just a reasonable thing to say based on the facts. That doesn't come from bias. I told you earlier, I said, Biden is doing this. Maybe he's just doing this for political purposes. That would seem like having a decent likelihood because you would have to think that there's a very good chance this will be overturned. That's not having an agenda either. It's just being reasonable. So having opinions based on reasonable facts, which are not based on bias. I don't have that opinion about Biden because I hate Biden. I don't have that opinion about Speaker Mike Johnson because I hate everything Republicans say. It is just using your head, using the facts, and drawing reasonable conclusions. That is not having an agenda. That's having an informed opinion based on the facts, not based on bias. There's an important difference, okay? So you can say agenda-free in quotes all you want. That just shows that you're not understanding what an agenda is. Anyways, you always get it. You always get it. Anyways, on that note, I think we're going to wrap up the, thanks, Matthew Felty. Matthew mentioned the same law we were just looking at. We were just on 8 U.S.C. 1158. Thank you, Matthew. That's what we were looking at on that page. Okay, anyways. I mean, when either side makes clear... Democrats do this, Republicans do this, where some Democratic Republican politicians will make just clearly statements from pure politics that are like misleading and don't include all the facts. Just, these very political statements criticizing the other side, which leave out important context. If you call that out and you say, no, that leaves out important considerations, that's not having an agenda, unless your agenda is to say, hey, these people are just playing politics and making these political points, and making these very political claims, which just intentionally leave out important context and important other points. That's not having an agenda to point that out. That's just being reasonable. So come on, really. Okay, anyways, we're going to wrap up this live stream. We will keep you informed. And if I hear of something important happening, or example, if I hear about some sort of court ruling, which I think is going to come, stopping this executive order, I will post it on my X account, which is @Lookner on X. You can follow me there for breaking news coverage. Hold on a second. Here we go. There we go. Okay. I'll post the link to that in the chat. Hang on. Ooh, thanks, by the way, to Half-Priced Buddha for the community, for the gift subs in Twitch, and Spicy Curry and Flaps 15 for subscribing on Twitch too, and Farquad as well, and Super Natty Metal. Thank you. All right. We are going to wrap up this live stream, but again, I'll let you know more on my X account if I hear updates. If there's some huge news on this, we'll do another stream. So subscribe, follow Agenda Free TV. Subscribe and follow. I am planning on doing coverage of the Boeing Starliner space launch, if it happens tomorrow. It's supposed to happen tomorrow morning, I think. Oh, by the way, Sharon F. said, do you think the timing of the Biden border announcement has something to do with completion of the Mexican election? Was he waiting to do this after the Mexican election? I don't know. I mean, it didn't seem like the Mexican election was that close anyway. So I don't know. I mean, the Mexican election just happened. Maybe for some reason he was waiting for the Mexican election to be over. I don't know. It's a good question. Maybe. I'm not familiar with what the reasoning would be. Maybe he thought for some reason, if he announced this before the Mexican election, the Mexican president-elect might be upset by this, that he didn't wait till after. I can't tell you. It's an interesting idea. I don't know. Okay, we're wrapping it up. We're wrapping up this live stream. Hey, subscribe, follow Agenda Free TV. We cover all kinds of live breaking news without an agenda here at Agenda Free TV. And let's see. What time is the launch tomorrow? I forget. It's supposed to be in the morning sometime. I have to look it up again. Uh, 10:52 a.m. is the next window. Tomorrow, 10:52 a.m. So if they do launch, we'll be covering it. That's my plan, unless something else is going on that we're covering. Okay, thanks to you for tuning in. I really appreciate you tuning in. Thanks for participating in the chat. Thanks for letting me read your comments on the air and sending in some interesting comments and questions. That I appreciate. And also, let's thank our moderators. They are fantastic. They are always here, keeping the chat respectful and civil. They're the reason why we can have chat rooms. RJ, Ruth Krafasi, Kinetic, really appreciate it. Linda Belk and Larry moderate for us on X. All of our other YouTube mods who have been there. Over there on Twitch, thanks to our mods over there. Bash and Girl, David Green, Idaho Star, I Got That Fire, Sarah and Papa Bear, thank you. Really appreciate it. And also our Facebook mods like Kay Larry Body, Christina Neal, Paul Anderson, Margaret Riley, thank you very much. And let's see here. Yeah, no, so really appreciate our moderators. And thanks to everybody who donated too. That is super nice of you. Very much appreciate your support for the channel. You were the ones who keep this channel going. So huge shout out to our donors. And if you ever want to donate, you can go to agendafree.tv, agendafree.tv. But thank you. And thanks to, oopsie, hold on a second here. Again, I apologize that the Facebook subscriptions thing is kind of messed up at the moment. So, you know what? I missed BB Matali sent Facebook stars. Thanks so much, BB Matali, for the Facebook stars, and Eve Richards and Sandy Zapp. Sorry, I missed that before. My bad. Eve Richards, Sandy Zapp, and sorry. Where is it here? BB Matali, thank you for the Facebook stars. Much appreciated. And thanks on Twitch to eBiker for your support. Thanks, eBiker, for your support, and everybody else I thanked earlier on Twitch. Hey, a great way to find, I don't know when big news is going to happen. We could have big news tonight. Or later today. So best way to know when I'm going on the air to cover live breaking news is to sign up for our notifications. We have a free notification system we have created through Discord. It works awesome. You sign up once for free and you get sent a message every time we're going live right before the stream. The moderators can post the link to the moderators can post the link to the notifications in the chat, and it's also available the link in the Facebook and YouTube description for this broadcast. But sign up for those free notifications. Those work great. It'll help you not to avoid missing some big breaking news broadcasts that you didn't know that was on the air. And let's see here. What else was I going to mention? Oh, and at the same link, you can check out our Discord chat where you can chat with other viewers when we're not live. A lot of our viewers like doing that. Big thanks to our Discord mods, by the way. And I also want to thank our Facebook subscribers and our Twitch subscribers and our YouTube members. And again, it is Facebook. What can I say? The whole subscriber thing is messed up and people can't see the badges. And I've been talking to them about this for days and they haven't fixed it yet. So hopefully they can fix it soon. So thanks to all of our Facebook subscribers there. I'm working on getting that fixed. Oh, and before I go further, I should mention also, as one of our mods just mentioned, I do have a personal channel where sometimes I stream live on non-news stuff. I was on it last night. For example, it's called Lookner on YouTube and Look Nerd with a D on Twitch. So you can check that out if you'd like. Let's see here. Thanks to our Twitch subscribers, for example, Anaconda, Half Price Buddha, Spicy Curry, Flaps, Farquad, Super Natty Metal, Warlord Wolf, I Got That Fire, The Sugaro, Jackson 22, Super Sounds, Sarah, Wall Street, Shaggy, Relila, Hasty Haiku, Blue Pip, all of our other subscribers over there. And our YouTube members, thanks to all of you, people like Janet Burnett, Nini, Lucky Minute, Alibaba, Just Me, Aaron, Carl West, NDH, Turned Off, Marissa Pugliese, Buffalo Women, Lunali Syria, Rex Direct, Linda Cosma, Yvonne McMillan, Songbird, thanks for being members on YouTube, Cindy J, Janet Burnett, Chris Ann Amra, Paul Tissue, Darian Gales, Marissa Pugliese, Cindy, Xylee42, Jelly Plain, Ronald Kame, Anna Paula Faust, Nibi, Sandy Poole, Lucky Minute, Mary McHugh, Peasy Papa Zulu, Dean R, Sinon, thanks for being members, Darth Tater, Strange and Scary New England, Lisa Fontaine, Jelly Plain, Heather here, and all of our other YouTube members, thank you. Joe Hart, and others. Marie Whitmore too. UV Lightning too. Okay, guys, so we are wrapping up this live stream. Thank you so much for joining us. This has been our live coverage of President Biden's new executive order announcement with a new restrictive policy about asking for asylum at the southern border. Will this policy stay in place? Will it go into effect at midnight tonight, or will the court system step in at some point and say this is a no-go? It is a violation of U.S. law. We'll have to see. Anyways, that is it for now. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you soon with more live breaking news coverage right here at Agenda Free TV.